Hello everybody and welcome back to the F2 show. I'm your host Fraser Ford, and joining me to look ahead to this weekend we have Inside F2 writers Aaron Harper and Lawrence Griffin, and we also have Motormouth's Imi Cousins. Coming up on the show then, we look ahead to the final round of the Formula 2 season as it heads to Abu Dhabi. Lots still to play for, particularly the Teams Championship, as the top two heads into the final round of the season level on points. And finally, there's been a lot of news since the last time the cars were on track. We discuss all. Okay, it's good to be back, isn't it, guys? It's been a long break, but cars are finally going to be back on track again this weekend. So much to talk about, so much has happened. Let's get straight into it. Lawrence, it's race week again. Are you a happy man that it's race week again? And if the answer is no, then you're probably in the wrong line of work, mate.
No, the answer is definitely yes. It's been a long wait for this, and I've been looking forward to it for quite some time now. But I think it'll be a good weekend once it gets going. It's always a bit of an odd one, this sort of last race at the end of the season that's so far out. We have such a big break that it sort of gives a sort of weird vibe to the weekend, a bit of a sort of end of year at school feel to it. And you know, we saw Piastri go absolutely nuts last season, making all sorts of moves. So maybe we'll see the same with Drugovich, who knows? But I think it'll be a good weekend.
Aaron, Felipe Drugovich with the kamikaze dives. Do you think that's something we're going to see this weekend?
I'm not sure we'll see that from him, but I do think we'll see him a little bit looser, a little bit more free. So, you know, if there's an opportunity to lick the stamp and send it, he'll be putting it in the post box. Don't worry about that.
He definitely will be. Looking forward to that. And Imi, great to have you with us on the show again. Perhaps Abu Dhabi hasn't been... I think it's fair to say that Abu Dhabi probably hasn't been a fan favourite circuit, has it? But it has produced some good races. Apparently there was some Formula 1 race last year, which was quite good, apparently. So what do you think of the circuit itself?
I think some parts of it can be quite interesting, but I'm very much one of the people of the opinion that Brazil should be the last track of the calendar, because it's so much better, like especially as we've seen this weekend. You just get such an exciting race, and then it feels like the season's had a bit of a letdown when you go to Abu Dhabi because just the racing's not as good. Whilst it is not one of the worst tracks on the calendar, it definitely could be better.
I'm kind of with you on that. I think I don't like the long gap personally. And I'm with you that the racing maybe isn't the best. So maybe I definitely prefer Kota or Brazil. But here we are, Abu Dhabi, and I'm just glad to see cars back on track to win this. Lawrence, about the circuit itself then, do you think the changes that they made to the track in Abu Dhabi last year made the racing better?
Yeah, I think overall they did. The track was never as bad for racing in Formula 2 as it has been in Formula 1. If you go back to 2010 and Alonso trying to get Petrov lap after lap, there's never been that level of frustration for any Formula 2 drivers. And I went back and rewatched the highlights from 2019, the last time Formula 2 raced with the old layout. And there were still plenty of overtakes, some really good battles throughout the field. But I think last season, with those changes, we did see a better sort of quality of racing. Those changes they made to the circuit really worked. That new reprofiled turn 9 widened and completely done away with that old chicane. Led to all sorts of great battles. Druvela and Drugovich fought all the way from turn 9 all the way through to turn 13, where you go under the hotel, which is a part of the track where usually you'd just be single file. And then they went and did the same thing in the second sprint race as well last season. And then you had Piastri's mad race, as I already alluded to, where you had contact with Nissany and Vips going into turn 9 as they tried to go 3 wide. So I think that definitely added to the racing we saw last year. And it adds an extra element in that you have such a wide turn that allows you to take different lines, whether that's sending it up to the inside or hanging it around the outside. It really invites you in and tempts you to make that move. And it means that whereas before you might have had to go into the old chicane, but the racing would go no further, you can have a battle that will continue for a couple more turns. And I think with wheel-to-wheel racing, more is more. And I think it certainly gave us more. And the other key area, of course, was turn 5, the removal of the chicane going into turn 5 as well. And that means that the cars are brought much closer together for that back straight section where all the action really happens. It really sets you up well, and again allows for a couple of different racing lines. And then you could even have a battle all the way into turn 5, down the straights, swapping positions at the chicane, all the way into turn 9 now. So I think that's completely transformed the circuit and has made what was already an exciting track for Formula 2 even better, I think, now. And so I think that, combined with that sort of last day of school feeling, with everyone either knowing they were in the sport next season or they weren't, just sort of giving it a go, and the turns allowing you to do that, really made for a good combination. So hopefully we'll see more of the same this year.
Absolutely, lots to play for, of course, as well. Let's take a look at the championship standings going into the final weekend of the season then. Felipe Drugovich was crowned our champion in what seems a lifetime ago now in Monza. He'll be looking to round off the season in style. Théo Pourchaire currently sits second in the standings. American Logan Sargent sits P3, hoping to score the super licence points that he needs to be able to drive in Formula 1 with Williams next year. Jack Doohan, Jehan Daruvala and Enzo Fittipaldi are all tied on 126 points going into the final round of the season in P4, P5 and P6. And the team standings. The main talking point of the weekend, but MP, Motorsport and ART go into the final round of the season level on points. Really looking forward to seeing how that one turns out. Carlin have an outside shot at the title. They sit 23 points back in third. Prema, High-Tech and Virtuosi round out the top 6. And as always, the full standings are available on our website, www.insidef2.com. Okay, as I said, lots to talk about other than the racing this week. We've got, lots of drivers doing FP1s in Formula 1 since Formula 2 cars were last on track. Obviously, Théo Pourchaire in COTA, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan in Mexico, and Logan Sargent did COTA, Mexico and Brazil with a view to getting those super licence points, as we've just mentioned, to be in Formula 1 next season. Aaron, what did you make of Pourchaire's performance, Lawson, Jack Doohan and Logan Sargent? What did you make of their performances in Formula 1 machinery?
Well, it was overall pretty positive because they all kept four wheels on their wagon and they got the mileage under their belt. And that's kind of your job if you're a Formula 2 graduate coming into that FP1 role, the reserve driver seat, is to go out, do the miles, get the experience under your belt, and most importantly, don't throw it in the wall because some other dude will need that for the later on and over the weekend. So they've all done a really good job there in terms of getting mileage and experience, and that is the most important thing. And it's an opportunity for them to integrate themselves within the various teams that they're working with. Obviously, for Logan Sargent, it's important that he gets to know the engineers and mechanics ahead of his potential race seat with Williams next year. But also with Jack Doohan, it's a possibility that he could be in an Alpine at some point soon because they don't seem to be able to keep their drivers in their main race team for too long at all. And obviously, Théo Pourchaire is on the Sauber radar. Who knows what's going to happen there when they become Audi. And Liam Lawson, we're not quite sure what's happening with him and his Red Bull seat. So it's still important for them to get the mileage and do the job correctly. And they've done just that. So it's positive to see these younger generation of drivers being given opportunity to get behind the wheel and show what they can do.
Logan Sargent potentially in the Williams. I like that, mate. That's he's seventh place in the standings he needs, right? There are other implications to that, but it's roughly about seventh. We won't go into the details. He shouldn't have a problem doing that, right, Aaron? Third in the standings going into this weekend.
You'd hope so, but the way Logan's luck has been since he won in Austria, it's been pretty rotten. And all it takes is one miscalculated overtaking attempt by an unnamed driver. And, his whole weekend could turn upside down. All of a sudden, he doesn't get the super license points. And where does his career go from there? Obviously, I really hope that doesn't happen because I think Logan is a supreme talent. And I'd love to see him in that Williams seat next season. I think it would be great for them as well to have a young rookie in there who's ready to fight and really thrash the car. But he's really got to balance the gain and the risk with the reward. So it's a real test of his mental sort of capacity to deal with pressure. That's a really good move from Williams, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm really excited to see what Logan Sargent can do in Formula One next season. Imi, I'm a big fan of this rule where teams are having to give 2 free practice sessions up to drivers who aren't their full-time drivers. Do you agree? Do you think that's a good thing? Because Formula 2 drivers have a lot more opportunities this season compared to recent years, right?
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot more of them in the FP1 sessions this year, which has been really fun to see because it also breaks up FP1 a little bit as well, just to see someone different on the track. It's obviously, as Aaron said, it's really good for the drivers to get in the teams as well and sort of see what they're working with. But in a way as well, especially earlier on in the season when a few of them were taking the slots, it did seem a bit like box ticking in just not serving a purpose for the F2 drivers and the young drivers. It seemed like more serving a purpose for the team and just getting like specific bits of data in or just putting them on the track for a few laps, sending them around slowly, and that's about all they got to do. So it's exciting to see them getting more opportunities, but it'd be nicer to see maybe the teams using them a bit better as well.
Yeah, Lawrence, would you say good incentive or box ticking? What do you think it is? Do you like it?
I think there's an element of box ticking there. I think there's always going to be an element to that, but I think it's a relatively small sacrifice to make to get Formula 2 drivers to have that opportunity. Because once you're in there and you're starting to integrate with the team, then with the ever-changing nature of the driver market, when there is an opportunity, you have something to go on in terms of, this is what I did in your car earlier in this season, my data, and you've got that foot in the door effectively. Whereas I think in past years that just wouldn't have happened. And I think it is also key that some of that happens early on in the year, that they're not just waiting for Formula 2 performances, because often you can get down to the last race of the season as we are now, and the order in Formula 2 isn't always sorted out. Drugovich has won the championship pretty early this season, but in previous years, drivers are still waiting to see where they're going to come out in terms of the Formula 2 championship. And the other moves in the driver market have already been made, and they've lost out because of that. So for them to be visible to the Formula 1 teams earlier in the season, I think is a really positive thing. And like Imi says, I think it just makes what would usually be quite a dull FP1 session a little bit more interesting to see how these young drivers are getting on.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's a great opportunity for the Formula 2 drivers as well. Someone who's had to wait, and I feel really sorry for him, is Felipe Drugovich. He's finally going to get his first outing in an FP1 this weekend in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, I don't know, Imi, would we not have liked to have seen him in Brazil this weekend in front of his home fans in the Aston Martin? Do you not think that would have been a bit more fitting?
I really think it would have been. Like, I was waiting because they seemed like they were announcing him that he was going to drive this weekend, but then it turned out they were announcing him for Abu Dhabi, and it wasn't even the way that, obviously because of the sprint, they didn't use FP1 the way they normally would, but we still managed to put Logan Sargent out in FP2. So why couldn't have we seen Felipe Drugovich? That would have, apart from like giving him an opportunity to be in an F1 car, it's his home race, which he wouldn't normally get to race in, especially like still being in F2. So putting him out this weekend would have been incredible, but they just didn't seem to click onto that.
Yeah, I think Aston Martin have missed a trick there, but who am I to say that? Anyway, Aaron, do you think, obviously we've seen it in the past, haven't we, where drivers have jumped into an FP1 session with a Formula 1 team as well as doing their Formula 2 weekend. He's far too professional to let that distract him, right?
I would hope so. I mean, we've had some accusations of unprofessionalism over the course of the last 24 hours. So you'd like to think he wouldn't let that affect his concentration. And we've seen earlier in the season, Liam Lawson, I believe, did it in Spa, where he jumped in the AlphaTauri and then was back in Formula 2 car later on. And in some ways, it can be an advantage because you get a little bit of extra mileage on the track. You see how the track evolution is developing, and you get to take that extra bit of momentum and that excitement into perhaps the qualifying session. Maybe you push a little bit harder because you go, okay, well, I know I can really push into this corner. Okay, the cars work slightly differently, but the fundamentals are pretty similar. And just having that buzz, I mean, can you imagine just driving a Formula One car? the buzz that would give you, I wouldn't be able to drive home if that was me. I'd be a menace. So I'd have to calm down. But for these drivers, they know what they're doing. So I'd love to see him get in that Formula One car and have a really good time, and then take that into his qualifying session on Friday.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing Felipe Drugovich in FP1, and it's been great to see a lot of drivers from Formula 2 and elsewhere as well. Obviously, getting those opportunities and looking forward to seeing more of that next season. Okay, other news since we were last on the podcast then. Dennis Hauver has been announced as an MP Motorsport driver for next season. Is that a good move for him, Lawrence, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a great move for him and a great move for the team as well. I think if you asked me this same question last year, I think I might have been singing a whole different tune, but MP have really proven themselves this season. Drugovich has managed in that car to be consistently quick this year, and whisper it quietly, but his MP has also been incredibly reliable this season. Now, how much that's in the team's control, I'm not sure. How much it's just Mechachrome being unpredictable and know what you can possibly guess when one of the engines is going to blow up. Or it could just be some sort of good luck charm, the opposite of the ART second seat curse, perhaps. But I think this is a move that will work for him. I think he needed a change of scene. I think it didn't really click for him at Prema. He came up with such promise after driving so well in Formula 3 and wasn't able to quite deliver on that. And if he can gel with the team as well as Felipe Drugovich did, and I know something seemed to click there with Drugovich and MP. You saw it in his first season there. Compare that to when he was at Virtuosi to then when he went back. But if he can do that, if he can get that team to work around him, they've shown that they can deliver with results. And I think if Klemen Novalak stays, which of course we don't know yet, I think that would also be quite a good combination in that you've got two drivers in their second season, both with a bit of experience. And I think Novalak also is ready to make a bit of a step up and will be able to deliver, and I think will be good enough to challenge Hauger and push him to be better as well. So I can see it working out pretty well at MP for Dennis Hauger next season.
You know, Lawrence, now you've said that about reliability, he's going to have 28 retirements next season, and the Lawrence Griffin curse will continue, right?
Oh, absolutely. MP Motorsport double retirement this weekend now that I've said that.
Oh dear, there you go. Other news then, Ollie Berman announced at Prema for 2023. I think that's really exciting to see what he can do in Formula 2 next season. Did either of you, Lawrence, Aaron, did either of you have Ollie Berman at Prema in your predictions?
I did.
No, I didn't.
Lawrence didn't, Aaron did. Lovely stuff.
I was doing a little jig of delight when I saw that pop up.
I think I had him as mine at Prema as well, one of the Prema drivers for me as well. If you haven't done so already, you can check out our prediction video. Essentially, we've sat down, a few of us, and we've predicted who's going to be where in 2023, what drivers are going to be in what cars. So be sure to go and check that out. I'm sure producer James can put that in the description below. But it's just a bit of fun. And I think all three of us have already got at least one wrong already. So, all fun and games, isn't it? But, Imi, are you looking forward to seeing Ollie Berman in Prema in 2023?
I definitely am. I probably would be even more excited if we'd seen the level from Prema that we'd seen last season, because obviously Prema hasn't really shined this year in F2 the way it usually does, which was, I think, probably a bit of a surprise to everyone. But still, Prema is a really great team. You've seen a lot of really good drivers come from Prema. So yeah, I think it's a really good move for Ollie.
Yeah, I think so as well. Exciting to see who he'll be alongside as well. Frederick Vesti, maybe, potentially. So let's wait and see. Finally, in terms of our announcements then, Enzo Fittipaldi announced as a Red Bull driver this weekend. Red Bull got it. They went for the Brazilian announcement in Brazil, didn't they? They got it. Obviously one of the standout drivers from this season, someone who hasn't been affiliated with a driver academy all season long. Is that a good move for him, Imi, in your opinion? Do you think that will open up opportunities for him?
I think in a way it will. So obviously, like, it's very classic thought that to get into F1 you need to be associated with one of the academies. But on the alternate this year, obviously we've seen Felipe not be associated with the academy, and he's not getting an F1 seat, but he is now associated with an F1 team. However, because it's Red Bull, and they've had some questionable moves of using their junior academy this year, especially, that sort of they seem to ignore their junior drivers, but yet have so many of them. So I think it will give him a boost in the driver market. It won't necessarily see him get opportunities with Red Bull.
I think it's definitely a bit of a blessing and a curse being a Red Bull junior, isn't it? Because there is such chaos that goes on within the Red Bull Junior Driver Academy that if you're on the receiving end of the wrath of Helmut Marko, then that's pretty bad for you, obviously. But if you can avoid that, then who knows when an opportunity might come out. If you look at, Perez and Verstappen's falling out over the weekend, has that just taken a year off his time at Red Bull? Would Tsunoda be moving up to Red Bull in a couple of seasons' time, leaving an AlphaTauri spot? We don't know. So as long as I think you can focus on your own driving and your own performance and keep the level up, you can position yourself in the Red Bull Academy to pounce on those sorts of situations, provided you're not the victim of them yourself, of course.
It's a good marketing strategy as well from Red Bull. I don't know what their sales are like in South America, but having a Brazilian driver in Red Bull gear, if they give him a few FP1 outings, if they can get him in an AlphaTauri, that's Red Bull sales in Brazil sorted for however long he's there, isn't it?
The cynical take there from Aaron.
Yeah, so is Enzo Fittipaldi, is that a good move for him or not? Let us know in the comments section below or on social media if that's a good move. I tell you what, we might even, on the Inside F2 Twitter page, at F2 Inside, maybe we'll do a poll. Is that a good move for Enzo Fittipaldi, yes or no? We will get that out on Twitter, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. Aaron, as Imi's just said, obviously it could help him in the driver market. Do you think that could lead to him getting a top seat next season and moving on from Charouz?
Well, he's performed really well in the Charouz, and there is a lot to be said for that continuity and that familiar surrounding. We've seen just how much success that Felipe Drugovich has had going back to MP Motorsport. But there is also something of a hierarchy within Formula 2 in terms of the same sort of teams doing well. And MP have had sort of a breakthrough year. So whether he moves to a Carlin or an ART, maybe he takes a Prema seat, still, lots to be decided. But Charouz, I think, want to keep hold of him, and he's been doing a great job. It's, that you've got all these Red Bull Junior drivers that they're everywhere, like Imi said, and none of them seemed to stand out last year. They all had their moments, but no one seemed to take the bull by the horns, to coin a phrase. So I'm not really sure it matters too much which team they put him with. It's just about finding the right fit.
Yeah, and obviously done really well with Charouz this season. So let's hope it's not like a Felipe Drugovich 2021 type scenario where he gets to drive in a top team and actually doesn't do as well, because we all want Enzo to do well, don't we? I think as well, that's probably not going to be the last Red Bull announcement. Expecting Zayn Maloney to potentially sign with Red Bull and Sebastian Montoya as well to be added to the Red Bull rostrum over the next few weeks as well. Speaking of Zayn Maloney, he'll be jumping into a Trident for the final round of this season this weekend, replacing Callum Williams. What do you think he can do this weekend, Lawrence? Is it a getting used to the car, getting used to Formula 2 type weekend, or do you think he can compete and potentially get some points?
Well, Trident haven't been competing right at the front this season, so I think there's no pressure on him to come in and blow everyone away. I think the focus will be on getting used to the machinery, getting that knowledge and storing it ready for next season so that he can make a really good start next year. And we saw Jack Doohan do this last year. 2021's runner-up in F3 jumped into the MP and put it on the front row in Abu Dhabi last season. So there's no reason why Maloney can't show up and grab people's attention with his performance as well. And bearing in mind, he comes into the race with phenomenal momentum. He's won the last 3 feature races in F3 this season. which you don't really see in a series as chaotic as F3. To win 3 feature races on the trot is so impressive, and narrowly missing out on the title, of course. So I think there's no pressure on him to perform, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him putting on a really good show.
Yeah, I mean, if he can win another feature race, that would be incredible, wouldn't it? If he does, I don't think that's realistic, but yeah, it would be quite special, wouldn't it? Lots still to play for, of course, as we've been saying. Aaron, do you think we'll see any other movement in terms of, I suppose as well, do you think there'll be any other Formula 3 drivers that step up this weekend and potentially cause some issues to some of the guys who are, your MPs and your Carlins and your ARTs who are trying to secure their team standings places?
Well, it'd be nice to see a few more F3 drivers given the chance. I mean, whether you allow teams to field a third car like certain teams do in Formula 3, it might be over the budget, but who knows in that respect. Flores from F1 Feeder Series is reporting that there's a couple more expected moves this weekend. He didn't really elaborate, although one reply did suggest Daniel Ricciardo. So watch this space. It'd be nice to see like Ollie Berman, those who have been sort of almost secured seats at the moment, given an opportunity. But I think it's based on the teams and who's got control of which seats. In the case of Ollie Berman, you can't see him getting rid of one of the Red Bull back drivers in that team. That'll be in for every race. So I don't think it's that likely, really, that we see too many more. But we might see, a couple of shifts around the grid. There might be a spot open up here and there. So we'll just have to watch closely and see who pops up.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And we always like to see new drivers in Formula 2. So, let's see what happens. Okay, final question to you all then. Who wins the team championship this weekend? Obviously, as we've been saying, MP, ART going in level on points. Carlin 23 points back. Who wins the title? Aaron, we'll come to you first.
I'm going to go with Carlin because they're from Farnborough. And my dad lives in Aldershot, so local team.
Seems perfectly good rationale as to why they're going to win the title. Imi, we'll come to you next. Who's winning the team's title?
I think ART are going to, because it's like Felipe and Teo have been quite equal the majority of the season. Obviously, Felipe's just about managed to get ahead. But compare Fred Vesti to Clement Novalak's year. Vesti's done so much better, so I think the pairing of Teo and Vesti is gonna get them the title.
I don't give my opinion on here very often, but I'm with you on that. I think that ART are going to be the two of them are going to outweigh Felipe Drugovich. I think. Lawrence, over to you. What do you think?
Well, this works out quite well. I think MP will win. I think Felipe Drugovich, will be riding a bit of a high after getting that FP1 outing, and I see him driving without the pressure now that he's won the championship, but I don't see him quite letting loose in the way that Piastri did and getting involved with too many incidents. And I do rate Clement Novalak. I think he's been gaining experience this season. I think he's been getting better. I wouldn't be surprised to see him perform well. And that's no discredit to Pourchaire or Vesti either, and because Vesti's had his moments this year as well. I think it'll be an incredibly tight race, and it'll really give us something to cheer for with the driver's title already sewn up.
I love that as well. All three of you have gone for different teams, so we'll have bragging rights on social media. I'm sure we'll be tweeting left, right, and centre as that kicks off. Lovely stuff. Okay, that's all we got time for today. Really, really looking forward to seeing cars back on track this weekend, and I'm sure you guys are as well. My thanks to Lawrence, to Aaron, and to Imi for joining me on today's show. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you give it a like, subscribe for more Formula 2 content. We'll be going live after both the sprint race and the feature race this weekend on Twitch, so make sure you tune in for that as well. And as I've said, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments to various different topics that we've discussed today. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. #the F2 show to get involved in the conversation as well. But But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.